Hi, this is Dr. Froy. In this blog, I'm going to be going over heart disease, heart attacks, and the myths behind a lot of the things we understand and even the treatment protocols that we follow. So, the reason for me jumping onto this topic is one, because I just had a patient that told me that she got a carotid, she's had a previous heart attack, put a stent in, and now they tested the carotids, and there's been an increase in the calcification, the plaquing in one of the carotid arteries. So it got me thinking again about some information I've read over the years, and hey, let me go back and look at that again. And then I just had a situation also with a family member, also that now has to do a quadruple bypass because of plaquing and decreased blood flow. So the term for that is atherosclerosis. And I went back and pulled out a few books that I remember reading along the way. And I mean, the bottom line is that the model that we're all following is that the fat clogs the arteries, and that's the cause. And so we take the statin drugs, and we're supposed to be doing the low-fat diet, and want. And yet everyone still drops dead of heart attack, and everyone still has atherosclerosis. And yet everyone, by the way, is taking the statin drugs because they are. And the goal is to get the cholesterol under 200 because that's what everybody's doing. And yet everyone's still dropping dead, or they're getting plaque on a regular basis. So I went back and did a little Google searching, and I went back to looking at some of the concepts. So if you go back and you look at the fat theory of heart disease, starts about 60 years ago. And there's a person named Ansel Keys that says, hey, everything is fat. And there's another doctor named Dr. Yudkin that says, hey, everything is sugar. And probably the sugar concept is more, meaning blood sugar issues and carbohydrates. That's probably creating more heart disease than the whole fat idea. But then I went in even further to look back at some of the concepts that Linus Pauling had put forward. And Linus Pauling, along with a few other doctors, were the beginning of what's called orthomolecular medicine. So I was taught about Linus Pauling from one of my very first nutrition teachers. The book that he put out a long time ago was How to Live Longer and Feel Better. A little bit about Linus Pauling. He was a 2-time Nobel Prize winner. He very smart guy. I think he was nominated a few other times. So we have a 2-time Nobel Prize winner. He reads research by 2 other psychiatrists using high-level vitamins and minerals, termed orthomolecular medicine. And over a time frame, he says, why is this information not being published in the mainstream journals? And they say, we can't get in. There's a bias. So he says, I'm Linus Pauling, 2-time Nobel Prize winner. I will co-author papers with you, and we'll submit this in. Well, pretty soon, he realizes that, there's a big bias about vitamins and minerals. And over a time frame, even the great 2-time Nobel Prize winner, Linus Pauling, pretty soon gets put into the concept that he's a whack and he's a quack and and what does he know and everything else. He's a science guy. He knows. So anyway, he's the person that promotes high levels of vitamin D and taking vitamin D in way above RDA. RDA is nothing more than complete deficiency disease. So take vitamin C. I think the RDA is 60 milligrams. Well, 60 milligrams will prevent you from not getting scurvy. But the real question is, what's optimal production? So a few things. So as I'm looking at the entire concept of heart disease again, I plug in about the information. I come across a great paper published in the World Journal of Cardiovascular Disease 2016, and the title is Atherosclerosis and the Cholesterol Theory, a Reappraisal. Now you need to realize also, the cholesterol concept of heart disease is still just a theory. We don't have solid proof that lowering cholesterol and lowering these blood cholesterol levels by under 200, and that not eating cholesterol lowers heart disease. And my thought process says, well, it absolutely is not a valid theory because everyone is still dropping dead of heart disease. The numbers have not gone down at all. It's still the number one cause of death in the U.S. Everyone's popping statin drugs. How could it be good? How could it be real? Why are we not seeing results? My understanding was that in 1986, the American Heart Association, after they discovered statins in about 1984, came out and made a statement that within 2 years they will eradicate heart disease because they now had these drugs called statins that blocked an enzyme called HMG coreductase, and that lowered cholesterol production. So the theory was that we're going to give it to everyone, lower these levels, and heart disease is going to stop. The only problem is it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Not only does it not work, then you have massive side effects of those drugs, and they're probably one of the most dangerous drugs to be on, because when you lower cholesterol, which is the precursor to all your hormones, cholesterol is also the precursor to coenzyme Q10. Cholesterol is 75% of your brain. You create massive decline in brain and body function, and whether you're getting significant obvious side effects or not, it is creating a massive allostatic stress load in every single person that uses them. Plus, the bottom line is this: why am I taking this if it doesn't work? Why am I taking this if I still got all plaqued up? Please explain to me. If I tell you that this is going to fix your leak and yet the roof still leaks, why would we keep doing it? So, in this paper here, it's pretty cool paper, interesting. I'll probably attach it. Basically that the cholesterol theory went from fats were the issue, to saturated fats were the issue, to LDL was the issue, to oxidative LDL was the issue, to lipoprotein A was the issue. Okay, so when we break it all down, we have these different subtypes of cholesterol, and over a time frame, we talk about these are good and these are bad, and the cholesterol types are LDL, VLDL, HDL, triglycerides, lipoprotein A. So it all sounds great. Bottom line is we want to see heart disease going down. I don't want to see that I'm all plaqued up. I don't want to have to go in for a quadruple bypass. I don't want to be told that I have an increased risk of stroke. I don't want to necessarily have to be on blood thinners and statin drugs forever, which carry major side effects. So let's go through the entire concept here. So accordingly, this is based on the paper now, the vascular deposition of large molecules such as LPA and atherosclerosis is the result of the body's endogenous protective mechanism to reinforce weakened arterial walls. Wow. So basically, I always think about this too. Why is my body raising cholesterol? Why is my body raising lipoprotein A? Why is my body raising blood pressure? Why is my brain and my body doing that? What's the purpose of that? And if we pull back for a second and we understand this, there is an innate intelligence inside your brain and body that runs everything. There is never a mistake. If you got cancer, it was a choice between the body giving you cancer or you dying. If you have plaques, it was the choice of the body, the intelligence of the system saying, let's create plaques or you're dead. It's always life or death. And the intelligence of your system is making the call that these diseases of adaptation, these diseases of the system not getting what it needs or too much of what it doesn't need, is the best ability of my system to adapt to everything that you are personally doing wrong. Okay? So in here, basically, when we look at these cholesterol saturated fat, which again is a theory, well, there's also been alternative hypotheses about the vascular deposits and the lipoprotein A. And basically, listen to this. I'm going to repeat it again. Accordingly, the vascular deposits, the plaquing, such as LPA and atherosclerotic plaques, is the result of the body's endogenous, inside, protective mechanism to reinforce the weakened artery walls. So, the body's not making a mistake. It's actually that you get leaky blood vessels, and over a time frame, the body says, what can we do to strengthen the weakened artery walls? And over a time frame, the body says, let's put a patch on it called a plaque. But if it keeps going, it could kill you. But the plaque is not pathology. This is an intelligent decision by the body to try to reinforce the weakened arterial walls, because what's happening is you are internally slowly bleeding to death. So that's what's happening on the inside. So over a time frame, again, in the 1950s, we start doing these studies on saturated fat. Ansel Keys produces a paper. The paper ends up later being shown to be a fraudulent paper. But pretty soon we're all on the fat. The 70s come around and it's anti-cholesterol, anti-butter, anti-dairy, no red meat. And we've been doing it ever since. And yet everyone's still dropping dead. So then we also come up with that there's 9 risk factors of heart disease, okay? And we're going to try to address all of these risk factors. Number 1, smoking. Okay, well, if you're smoking, stop. I mean, obvious. Your blood lipids, hypertension, diabetes, being overweight, obesity, psychological stress, fruit and vegetable consumption, alcohol consumption, and physical activity. So basically, we barely talk about any of that, and all we do is we look at cholesterol only, and we give you statin drugs, and we lower your blood pressure, and that's it. And if you die, you die. And then my other question I said to myself also is, so the person that follows this methodology about the cholesterol theory and doing all of the things that the typical allopathic doc tells you to do, if I end up getting plaquing, do I say to myself, well, if I didn't get the plaquing, I would have died already? So that with that protocol, I'm still at least alive, even though I have plaquing now, and now I might need a quadruple bypass. Or should I say, it didn't work, and what am I doing? I don't know. I think that's what I'd be saying. It didn't work, and what am I doing? So we also looked at different alternative theories. Now, I want to talk to you about a guy named Matthias Rath. So Matthias Rath is a German scientist who is starting to do studies on heart disease and lipoprotein A, and this is the late 80s, and then he ends up getting into collaboration with Linus Pauling and taking over the Linus Pauling Institute. And he's able to show that over a time frame that lipoprotein A goes up proportionately elevated as you become as your arteries become weakened, and this is a protective mechanism of the body to then clog up these leaks that will kill you very soon. And over a time frame, he is able to show this, that lipoprotein goes up as the vitamin C levels goes down. So he then gets in collaboration with Linus Pauling, and in 1992 they come forward with the new theory that heart disease is basically scurvy almost, and that the vitamin C level is low, lipoprotein goes up, these plaques are formed as a response to save your life so that you don't die of scurvy, and gradually over a time frame, now we have the whole reason for why the body would do that. So if I am depleted in vitamin C, and I then say I have to fix the problem, I may increase my lipids called LDL and lipoprotein A, and even cholesterol levels, because I'm trying to solve the problem of the leaky blood vessels. So over a time frame now, I'm going to patch them up, and I might create plaques, but at least I'm alive. That's the concept. So that's innate intelligence at work. So yes, there's all kinds of studies that what they came up with, the idea that lipoprotein goes up in response to a depleted system of vitamin C. They also showed that there's only 2 animals that do not have the genetic ability to produce vitamin C. That's a guinea pig and a human. So we cannot produce vitamin C. We must get it in our food. You think that a lot of us are depleted in the foods we're getting? Yes, absolutely. So over a time frame, if we're not getting it, the innate intelligence response to raise the lipids, including lipoprotein A and cholesterol, is not the pathology. And if the body has to form a plaque to save your life, it's not a disease. It is a healthy response to the low vitamin C levels. Makes sense to me. Why the heck would the body do that? Makes sense to me. So that's what we know. And by the way, there's tremendous amounts of research, 77, 80 different research articles in here. So the next thing is, why does it happen? Why do we find that if it's the low vitamin C, why don't we see the leaks and the plaques happening in the venous system? Why is it only in the arterial system, the arteries? And this makes total sense too. If I have a leaky hose, wherever there's the most pressure is the chance that it could burst, right? So I have hoses throughout my brain and my body. I've got arteries that carry information, that carry the blood from the heart down to the body, and I've got veins that carry the blood from the cells back up to the heart. The most pressure is in the arterial system by far, okay? So now why is that? Because the heart is pumping and there's more pressure going out. So do you think that there may be more leaks in the arteries? Yes. Do you think that there may need to be more patching, called plaquing, in the arteries? Yes. Do you think there may need to be less patching and plaquing in the veins? Yes. Cool. So that's why we see plaquing in the arteries, not the veins. Next thing is, why is there so much plaquing around my heart? Why is there not plaquing in my arteries in my arm or in my leg? Well, where's the most pressure? Right off the heart. Right off the heart. So once the heart pumps, boof, where's the blood go first? Right back to the heart. Boom, right back to the heart. Boom, right back to the heart. So is there the most pressure in the arteries directly carrying the blood from the pumping of the heart directly right back to the heart? Yeah. So that's where the most pressure is. If we have leaks all over and that's where the most pressure is, would that be the area that the intelligence of the body might repair the most? Yes. Might that be where we see plaques? Yes. Might that create a heart attack down the road? Yes. Is that pathology? Not really. It's an intelligent decision of your brain and body to save your life. And over a time frame, then we come in, we put a stent in. So we put a stent in to whatever artery it is. Oh, I feel good again. I'm good again. I'm good again. You still haven't corrected the underlying pathology as to why the body is making the plaques in the first place. Does it make sense that you might need to get another stent in? Yup. Does it make sense that you still may drop dead of a heart attack? Yup. Does it make sense that you're going to still form plaques? Yup. So the cholesterol floating along is an innocent bystander in the plaque. It's just used as kind of a glue to patch up the leaky blood vessels. Makes total sense to me. Total sense. I love when there's a common sense explanation for why our body may do something, and this is a common sense explanation. And what you also want to know is that Dr. Rath and his colleagues have also shown that if you give vitamin C, plaquing can go away relatively quickly. So now the question is, what's the downside of taking vitamin C? What's the downside? Zero. Zip, zilch. So, could you take 5 to 10 grams of vitamin C a day? Yep. You should also make sure it's in the right form, and there's other cofactors, and that's another whole story. But would you be wrong if you took vitamin C? No, there's a lot of other health benefits. And oh, by the way, it also helps with the leaky blood vessels. And they have tremendous amount of research on it. There's way more research on this concept that I'm explaining to you than the whole cholesterol theory. And you also have to realize there's common sense to this. Common sense. Vitamins and minerals are essential for your health or you die. Simple. Drugs are not required for health. All right, I'm still running. Sorry about that. Drugs are not required for health. And so every time you take them, they are creating possible side effects, but guaranteed long-term increases in your allostatic stress load. And they are driving you down closer to death with every capsule that you take every single time. So, would you be wrong taking some vitamin C? Nope. Would you be wrong in looking at this paper and going through it all and saying, hey, that makes good, reasonable sense from anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry? Yes. This is the number one drug in the United States, the statin drugs. The number of deaths have not gone down, and yet everyone is following the model. So I always like to say, if we're getting results, if we've seen a cut in heart disease dramatically over a time frame, well, then we might be able to show something. But if we're doing this since 1986, 96, 2006, 16, we're talking about almost 40, 35 years here, and we are not seeing a decrease, and yet the number one cause of death in the U.S. is still heart disease. I think we need to pick up our heads, take a look, understand anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and that the entire concept of health is to adapt. What can we do to let our system adapt better? If we look at health from an adaptability point of view and we figure out why we're not adapting, and a simple thing like this may be that I'm not getting enough of this in my system. If I send this into the system, might the entire process stop? It just makes sense to me. So this will be listed. I'm going to have 2 articles listed: the Pauling-Rath lipoprotein study, and then also the atherosclerosis and the cholesterol theory, a reappraisal. And there's over 75, 80 research articles in here, and it's something that you should look at. And if you have any questions, as always, thanks. Bye-bye.